So if you're the Dallas Cowboys, right? There's like, of anything on the vision board, it's pretty easy to see what's at the very top of the vision board for what they want for next season. Because all the other stuff has been accomplished, right? Last year, they fixed the defense. The offense the past couple years has been, statistically, in the regular season, the best offense, or one of the best offenses in football. Right? They had to figure out, okay, do we want Amari Cooper? We didn't want that money on our books. So then we had to find Brandon Cooks became a second weapon when you have an elite young wide receiver, right? Which they have. So all of that stuff was, okay, we got to figure out, can we part ways with Dak? Well, not with Dak, with Zeke. They did. Survived it. Can we find a second wide receiver? We did. Our offensive line has kind of aged. Can we continue to remake our offensive line? Now, I guess you're worried about, like, do we re-sign Dak? Like, all these things, the offense is good, the defense is good. You won your division. You won your division. And yet, the playoffs felt eerily similar, maybe even worse, right? Because you can lose to the Niners, well, they have just better players, but to lose to the Packers, and the way they lost to the Packers, I don't know how that's acceptable. And you could say, well, it's not acceptable. No one's ever said it's acceptable. That sounds great, but why are you bringing back Mike McCarthy? Great, the offense is good in the regular season. It failed in the playoffs. Great, the defense is good in the regular season. It failed in the playoffs. Here's Mike McCarthy talking about his goals and the team's goals.
We have established a championship program. It's just not the world championship yet. We know how to win. We know how to train to win. We have the right people, but we have not crossed the threshold winning playoff games. And it's extremely disappointing to be sitting here talking about it. But I know how to win, and we will get over that threshold. I have total confidence in it, and that's why I'm standing here today.
Okay. He knows how to win. Why can't they win in the playoffs? And not just win in the playoffs, why can't they win the big games? You know, it really is the same. I mean, look, they should have lost to Detroit at home. Like, we're being real here, right? Like, that was a BS call that they lost on with the tackle eligible. Should have lost to Detroit. Couldn't beat the Eagles on the road. Demolished by the 49ers, non-competitive. And then in the I know how to win, okay, well then show me. Where is the substantive proof that you can win when it actually matters? And again, I'm not one of these dudes that sit here and I like to fire coaches. But it all depends upon your stated goal and what if Mike McCarthy's strength is, I know how to win in the postseason, well, then why can't you win the postseason? And, oh, yeah, by the way, why does your quarterback look tight? Your entire team look tight. Your play calling look scripted and tight. Here's Mike McCarthy on his confidence level in Dak Prescott.
I have unbelievable belief in Dak. I think he clearly has another step. I think this offense has suited him well. I think the things that we were able to improve on, it's a system built around making the quarterback successful. The growth opportunity that we both see for the future was something that we are excited about.
Yeah, so he's like, Dak's awesome. He's got my back. I got his back. We're going to ride this thing out. Which, by the way, keeping Mike McCarthy ties you to the ship of not just Dak Prescott, but Dak Prescott at likely a sizable raise. I mean, again, in the real world, if somebody really had gumption, they would sit there and go like, I'd take Dak back. I'm not going to take him at over $40 million a year. But what's going to happen? You sign McCarthy, now you'll get Dak Prescott for $60 million for guaranteed for 2.5 years. Hey, and you're locked in. And as the price goes up and the salary cap percentage goes up, something's going to have to give. You won't have the dominant personnel. Like, if you've been in an NFL place for 2 years and though regular season successful, you appear to be front runners in the postseason. Could you tell me that there's improvement because they won their division? Yeah, but let's just be honest. Winning their division was more about the Philadelphia Eagles being a dumpster fire at the end of the season. The Giants were a mess all year. The Eagles were a dumpster fire. Washington is going through the process of change with a new owner, now new coach, and new GM, and whatever. Couldn't have set up any better for you, and your reward was playing at home in the playoffs against a quarterback who had not started a playoff game, against a team with one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and you got smoked. I'm not a fire coaches guy. I'm not a knee-jerk guy. I have no animosity towards Mike McCarthy, but he told you he knows how to win, and yet they haven't actually won anything in the playoffs. We're a championship-level team, just not a Super Bowl champion. Like, what does that even mean? The Cowboys are going to cowboy. And yes, you get continuity. You get continuity. But continuity of what you've had, is that what you're looking for? On the top of the vision board is go to and win a Super Bowl. And they're not close. Man, I want to get into this. I think we're right in the middle of one of the great rivalries in the NFL. The great rivalries in the NFL. And in our lifetime, Packers-Bears were told as a rivalry, right? Redskins-Cowboys, or now Commanders-Cowboys, rivalry. My childhood, Rams-Niners was always like kind of a cool West Coast rivalry sort of thing. Right? Raiders-Chargers used to be a cool rivalry, low-cal versus SoCal. Those are rivalries, but there are new rivalries. It did feel forever when you had Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, like there was only 1 year where Peyton Manning beat the Patriots in the playoffs. Right? It felt like that was a rivalry. Now the Broncos were kind of different. Right? The Broncos, when they had Elway, then when they didn't have Elway, but then when they had Peyton, they had different rivalries. I think the best new rivalry in the NFL is playing this weekend. Like Ravens-Steelers, which we think of as a great rivalry, isn't really, I guess it's the last 20 years, right? Because the Ravens kind of copied the Steelers model, and then they've been better at it than the Steelers over the last 20 years. Is that fair? So, Ravens-Steelers, but that's a modern rivalry because the Ravens, well, they were the Browns before they were the Ravens, right? They were the
original Cleveland Browns, yeah.
Right. So, and I don't know if Colts-Steelers was a rivalry, but my point is we're going to miss it. Just like I told people about Pat Mahomes last year, like, hey, let's not miss, we're watching the greatest quarterback ever to play football. You're going to miss it if you don't realize that Bills and Chiefs is a burgeoning rivalry. I know they didn't meet last year in the playoffs. They met last year in the regular season, and the Bills have won. They won the regular season this year, granted on a controversial call. They won this regular season last year. I think they won the regular season 2 years ago as well. And then Josh Allen played a perfect game. They got a 3-point lead with 13 seconds to go and give up a field goal. Is there something that keeps it from being a great rivalry? How many times do we need to see it before it becomes one? Because I know Packers-Bears is the oldest rivalry in the NFL, but it hasn't been competitive in years. It's just not. It doesn't decide anything. It doesn't mean anything. It just means these two cities have had football franchises for a long time, and they've always played against each other. But I don't know. Yes, Dan.
I think that there's two distinctions, and I think that they are very important, and I think Chiefs-Bills carries the weight of this. We've talked a lot about divisional rivalries. This is not a divisional rivalry. This is a conference rivalry, just like Manning, Brady, Colts, Patriots, however you want to put it. But there are other rivalries that I think that we saw in history as well. Cowboys 49ers rings a bell. Steelers Raiders rings a bell. And you think about those rivalries, and the reason that they're such great rivalries is because of the weight of the games that they've been playing in the playoffs, but also moments. The catch. Dwight Clark back of the end zone.
Yeah.
Immaculate reception.
Yeah.
In Pittsburgh. 13 seconds.
Yeah.
So it does rise to that level right now.
Yeah.
And I do think that it
and the penalty in the regular season with the throwback pass, like, I think that's a moment. I know it doesn't mean anything. It by the way means why they play in Buffalo this weekend, not in Kansas City this weekend. But that was the probably most discussed play of the regular season. Would you buy
the
that?
offsides call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, and that's where I think that this checks those boxes. Like, if you aren't convinced, I think you have to look back at those other rivalries. And there were short-lived ones, thinking in the 90s, even Green Bay and Dallas had a bit of one, but I think that for the most part we felt Dallas and San Francisco was the biggest rivalry that we had, and they won, they had a stretch where each team won 4 Super Bowls during a 4-year stretch, or they won all the Super Bowls during a 4-year stretch. That's what builds up. And I think that's why Chiefs-Bills now could have that ability, especially with these two quarterbacks, just like Manning against Brady, we could have for years to come.
Agreed.